Uh, Good afternoon, everyone. How are you doing today? I'm doing great. It's a rainy day here, but never fear, it doesn't stop Beatles trivia, does it? Luckily, it doesn't uh, depend on the weather, as do some of my other activities. I have my Beatle music playing in the background there, but I think needs to go down a notch, maybe. Alexa, reduce volume, please. Yeah, it's a little better. That'll work. Yes, indeed. Let's see if I can get rid of. There I am. All right. Yay. Good. My goodness. More and more, I love technology when it works. Because when it doesn't, um, it sucks, really, truthfully. So let's see, is anybody out there yet? I do not know. I am Sharon Schultz, also known as the Bay Lady, and I am uh, usually doing tours that had to do with like going places, different tourist attractions, events, maybe an event, I guess probably the last event I did was the Irish Festival. So that's a good example. You can probably find it on wherever you are watching this. So, also, I'm known as the Bay Lady because a lot of my tours had to do with the Chesapeake Bay area. This is a beautiful area in Maryland. Lots of seashore. We've got um, some outstanding parks and beaches and museums and mountains. We've got it all. And Chesapeake Bay is at the heart of everything. So that's why I'm the Bay Lady. Also, if you want to keep up with my tours, see what's coming up next, what's going um, you can follow me on Facebook, Sharon Schultz, the Bay Lady, um, or and not or but and you can follow me also on YouTube, the Bay Lady, and on let's see, oh yeah, well those two are probably the main ones. I'm on Twitch as well, but that's fairly new to me, so I don't really know how many people are tuned into that, but I'll find out before it's all over, rest assured. So, and if you want to support me, support my Bay Lady platform, um, also um, on Facebook and on YouTube, you'll find a link to buy me a coffee. That's where I can accept tips, gratuities, donations, whatever you wish to call it. It will go towards gas, admission fees for upcoming tours, as all my tours are free. They're tip based. So, anyway, we are doing Beatles trivia today. And I was just trying to decide what trivia book I'd like to use. Or trivia cards. I've got both, actually. Um, I want to see something here. I wish that they had trivia for the individual Beatles, like questions just about John or questions just about George or what have you. But I haven't been able to find anything like that. The figure, right? So this book is pretty okay. I guess we can use this. Let me see. Did I do this recently? Let me see. Hang on. Let me look at this one too. I probably did not do this one. Okay. Yep. 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 Okay. Let's do this one. Beatles trivia book. Um, by Dale Raines, available on Amazon, of course. What isn't available on Amazon? Okay, we did look at some of this earlier, chapter 1, and now we will attempt chapter 2. Okay, now Beatles trivia is really a cool thing if you're a Beatles fan. And I like doing it lunchtime because once upon a time, having been in that working world, I know how nice it is to have a distraction from your job at lunchtime. So um, that's why I started Beatles Trivia in a nutshell. Okay, trivia time. Chapter 2, Key People. Partnered with John Lennon, which other Beatle was jointly credited for most of the Beatles' music? Oh, this is too easy. Partnered with John Lennon, which other Beatle was jointly credited for most of the Beatles' music? Was it Ringo Starr, Paul McCartney, Brian Wilson, or Eric Clapton? Was it Ringo, Paul, Brian Wilson of Beach Boys, Eric Clapton? Who was it? Tick tock, tick tock. Let's see. Answers. Looking for the answers. Oops. Chapter 2. Chapter 2 doesn't have that many questions, I don't think. Okay. So, all right. As I said, this one was too easy, but we're going to go with it anyway. I'm sure you're going to be able to get the next few. Okay. Not much of a challenge, but that's all right. I'll take it. Paul McCartney, of course, was the answer. Paul was credited with co-writing most of the Beatles songs. Which Beatle was considered the lead guitarist and sometimes called the quiet Beatle? Which Beatle was considered to be the lead guitarist and sometimes referred to as the quiet Beatle? Was it John Lennon, Jimi Hendrix, George Harrison, or Pete Best? Again, was it John Lennon, Jimi Hendrix, George Harrison, or Pete Best? Who was considered the band's lead guitarist? And the answer is George. George was the lead guitarist. And he was also referred to as the quiet one. That would have never been John. He was one of the suggestions. Anybody ever knew John to be quiet? Back in your early years in Hamburg and in Liverpool, who was the Beatles' manager? Who was the Beatles manager and when they were working Hamburg and Liverpool? Was it Paul McCartney, Alan Williams, Brian Epstein, or Alan Klein? Paul McCartney, Alan Williams, Brian Epstein, or Alan Klein? Tick tock, tick tock, tick tock, tick tock, tick. Oh, such a good song, Michelle. The answer was Alan Williams. Alan Williams was their manager back in that day. True or false? Harrison, McCartney, and Lennon all played guitar. True or false? Harrison, McCartney, and Lennon all played guitar. That would be a true statement. True that they did. That they did. What is drummer Ringo Starr's birth name? You know, Ringo Starr is his stage name, literally like on the stage playing drums name. Ringo Starr, his professional name. So what was his birth name? Who is Ringo Starr? He's still out there performing and kicking butt too, isn't he? Okay, so the suggestions for what Ringo Starr's birth name is: Bo Stark, Richard Starkey, Ray Stern, or Ron Strum. So we have Bo Stark, Richard Starkey, Ray Stern, or Ron Strum. Eeny, meeny, miny, moo. Tick tock, tick tock, tick tock. Who might that be? Anybody venturing a guess out there? I don't see anyone venturing any guesses out there. So I'll just have to give you the answer then. It's Richard Starkey. Yeah, Richard Starkey. All right. So who was the Beatles' most trusted manager who helped bring them into the mainstream spotlight? Okay. Who was the manager of the Beatles that kicked them up to stardom? Who would that be? Would it be Alan Klein, Michael Jackson, Murray Wilson, or Brian Epstein? Alan Klein, Michael Jackson, Murray Wilson, or Brian Epstein? The answer. Did everybody get Brian Epstein? If you didn't, then you need to study up a little bit. Okay, George Harrison was best friends with which famous guitarist of the band called Cream? This dude's name has come up already. George Harrison, best friends with which famous guitarist of the band Cream? Was it Mick Jagger, Eddie Van Halen, Eric Clapton, or Chuck Berry? Again, Mick Jagger, Eddie Van Halen, Eric Clapton, or Chuck Berry? Who indeed was George Harrison's best friend? I know y'all are going to say Eric Clapton, correct? Wasn't Eric Clapton like lead guitarist and, well, lead singer of Cream? Probably, definitely. Who was called the Beatles' guru after they began studying transcendental meditation? Who was called the Beatles' guru after the Beatles began studying transcendental meditation, which was invented by this guy. Anybody? The choices are Ravi Shankar, Tirumalai Krishna Jose, and Maharishi Yogi. So we've got Ravi Shankar, Tirumalai Krishna Joyce, and Maharishi Yogi. And the answer is Maharishi Yogi. Maharishi Yogi was the answer. Okay, what was the name of the original bass player for the Beatles who John Lennon convinced to join from art school? This was a person that John met when he attended art school. What was the name of the original bass player for the Beatles who John had convinced to join from art school? Was it Stuart Sutcliffe? Was it Martin Scott? Was it Pete Best? Or was it Paul McCartney? So who was the first bassist for the Beatles? Stuart Sutcliffe, Martin Scott, Pete Best, or Paul McCartney? Tick tock, tick tock. Tick tock, tick tock. Does anybody know the answer? I do. I know who it is. See if I'm right. Hey, score one. It was Stuart Sutcliffe. And that was kind of pretty easy to arrive at, really, because of the choices, Stuart Sutcliffe, Martin Scott, I'm not familiar with, but Pete Best is a drummer, and Paul was who replaced the original bassist, Stuart Sutcliffe. Ta-da! Okay. We'll continue here in just a minute. Okay. After arranging their residency in Hamburg, who did the Beatles hire to be their first official drummer in 1960? After arranging their residency in Hamburg, who did the Beatles hire to be their first official drummer in 1960? Was it George Harrison, Miles Davis, Pete Best, or Stuart Sutcliffe? And we know Stuart played the bass. We just did that. So, was it George Harrison, Miles Davis, or Pete Best? Who was the Beatles' official drummer in 1960? If you said it was Pete Best, then you were right. True or false? The Beatles never used sessions musicians. The Beatles never used session musicians. So, well, I'm thinking Eleanor Rigby and all the horns in the brass section there. So I'm going to say false. How about you? And the answer is false. Let's see. What was the name of the producer who signed the Beatles and recorded them for the first time at Abbey Road Studios? What was the name of the producer who signed the Beatles and recorded them for the first time at Abbey Road Studios? Was it Jack Mavis, George Martin, Phil Spector, or Quincy Jones? Jack Mavis, George Martin, Phil Spector, or Quincy Jones? Who? Anybody? Anybody know? I am going to say George Martin. And that is correct. George Martin is the correct answer. Okay, next. Who was the soul musician from Houston, Texas, that played electric piano and organ for the Beatles in 1969 and performed with their band at their final live performance that year? I'll ask it again. Who is the soul musician from Houston, Texas, that played electric piano and organ for the Beatles in 1969 and also performed with their band at their final live performance that year? Was it Billy Preston, Ray Charles, Elton John, David Bowie? All excellent piano players. Billy Preston, Ray Charles, Elton John, David Bowie. Who was it? Anybody? Well, the answer is Billy Preston. Billy Preston, he was there in the studio when they were recording Let It Be, and the rooftop concert that they did over Apple headquarters in London was Billy Preston. He played with them there as well. Okay, Who is the famous multimedia artist whom John Lennon met at the Indica Gallery, London, in 1966, and then married in 1969? I think we all know who that might be. Who is the most famous multimedia artist whom John Lennon met at the Indica Gallery in London in 1966 and then married in 1969? Was it Nay Pang, Yayoi Kusama, Yoko Ono, or Cynthia Lennon? Nay Pang, Wayuki Kusama, Yoko Ono, or Cynthia Lennon? Eeny, meeny, 1, 2, 3. All right, and the answers are coming up. Yes, they are. Okay, Yoko Ono, of course, right? We all knew that. Let's see, what else? During their early days in Hamburg, who was the German photographer that captured photos of the original members of the Beatles? Again, during their early days in Hamburg, who was the German photographer that captured photos of the original members? Was it Ursula Andress, Anita Espert, Astrid Kircher, or Marlene Dietrich? Ursula Andress, Anita Osper, Astrid Kircher, or Marlene Dietrich? And the answer is Astrid Kircher. And I believe it was Astrid who cut their hair and invented their trademark Beatles haircut. Which road manager started in 1963, contributed to many of the Beatles' recordings, and even appeared in most of their films? Who was that? Who was it? Which road manager back in 1963 contributed to the Beatles' recordings and appeared in their films? Who was that? Was it Tony Barrow, Mal Evans, Jeff Emmerich, or Tommy Moore? Tony Barrow, Mal Evans, Jeff Emmerich, or Tommy Moore? And the winner is, I'm just missing an envelope. Mal Evans was the correct person. Mal Evans. Who was the publicist for the Beatles that coined the term the Fab Four while promoting the band? Who coined the Fab Four? What publicist was it? Brian Epstein, Albert Grossman, Tony Barrow, or Barry Pepper? Brian Epstein, Albert Grossman, Tony Barrow, or Barry Pepper? And the answer is Tony Barrow. What was the name of the recording engineer at EMI Studios who worked with the Beatles from 1966 through 1969 and contributed greatly to their innovative and non-traditional recording techniques? Okay, so we're looking for the name of the recording engineer at EMI Studios from 1966 to 1969, who contributed to the Beatles' innovative and non-traditional recording techniques. Was it Tom Schultz, Tom Meek, George Massenburg, or Jeff Emmerich? Tom Schultz, Tom Meek, George Massenburg, Jeff Emmerich. And the answer is Jeff Emmerich. What was the name of John Lennon's fellow student at the Liverpool College of Art who started the Mercy Beat, a newspaper in early 1960s that covered the Liverpool music scene? So what was the name of John Lennon's fellow student at the Liverpool College of Art who started Mercy Beat, a newspaper in the early 1960s that covered the Liverpool music scene? Was it Tommy Moore, Bill Harry, Ken Scott, or Jimmy Nicol? Tommy Moore, Bill Harry, Ken Scott, Jimmy Nicol. And I haven't a clue as to who. So let us look. Bill Harry. I know a Deborah Harry. Don't know a Bill Harry, but that's who it was. It was Bill Harry, John's friend at school. Okay, last question. True or false? This is an interesting question, by the way. True or false, Bob Dylan was a member of the Beatles for 1 year. Bob Dylan was a member of the Beatles for a year. Bob Dylan. Now, I love these true and false questions. Just got a 50-50 shot at getting it right or wrong, right? Well, I'm going to say this is false. I don't think Dylan ever played with the Beatles. They were two such different styles. And that is the correct answer. False. He never was a member of the Beatles for 1 year. He was a member for 6 months. No, I'm kidding. He wasn't. He never played with the Beatles. Nope, he sure didn't. Well, my friends, I'm going to mark this page here, and next time we come back to this book, um, we will go to chapter 3. We'll know where we left off. Okay. All right. Well, and this concludes our Beatles lunchtime trivia, and I hope you all have a great rest of the week. We're halfway there. It's Wednesday. It's a rainy day here, but we have here in the States Memorial Day weekend coming up, so that's reason to look forward. All right, everybody, enjoy. Bye.